This was an epic failure in the last several years by Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens, and that's why they're gone. This isn't Ainge with a health issue. Now, nothing's black and white. Did Ainge have health problems? Sure, but to me, this is an issue of a failure and a semi-firing of both Ainge and Stevens.
He put together a team with Gordon Hayward, Kyrie Irving, that was at the top of the league. Everyone expected them to win.
Nothing happened.
Gordon Hayward blew out his ankle in like 7 minutes into the game or 5 minutes into the game, the first game of the season.
And they had a chance to get something for him in a trade at the end. They got nothing. I mean, I don't see how this is even arguable. You had Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, two young stars. Now you're getting eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. You haven't been back to the NBA Finals in 8-9 years, and everyone talks about how good Ainge is and how good a coach Stevens was. I'm frustrated. I think it's been a disaster.
Oh my God, that's insane. Insane.
Disaster? I think it's reality. I'm a scoreboard watcher.
I
don't go by things made up.
I'll say disappointment, but not disaster. I can't go disaster. Disappointment, absolutely.
This is our city, and nobody gonna dictate our freedom.
For the first time in 39 years, the Boston Bruins have won the Stanley Cup.
Anything's possible!
When we last convened, boys and girls, the Boston Bruins had Stanley Cup dreams. The Boston Celtics were coached by a 44-year-old masshole. And no team had ever gone into Fenway Park and hit 8 home runs in a game. But my friends, the world has changed since we last got together. We are the Sons of Bellhorn coming back at you here in mid-June. How did that happen so quickly? And I can't think of two bigger SOBs than I'd rather figure this all out with than my main men, Steve Scheele, Darwin Zook, and guys, we got a lot to get to, like I talked about. Celtics, Bruins, Red Sox, and time permitting, it may not, the Patriots. Is it the Mac Jones era? We will sound off on that. But let's begin with the big news that really came around the time that we last talked. We didn't get it. It didn't happen when we last talked, but soon thereafter. Danny Ainge, gone. Brad Stevens, promoted. What the hell is going on with the Celtics and who's going to coach them next? Who do we start with? Alphabetical order. That would be you, Steve Scheele.
I got to say, there's no one happier in the world than Darwin Zook right now. He's been calling for this for a long, long time for Brad Stevens to go. He didn't technically go out the door, but he went upstairs. Man, I am shocked. I did see some changes coming. I was wondering if Ainge might see his last days in the Celtics green right now, but I did not see him leaving and Brad Stevens taking his place, opening the coaching box up, because Stevens just signed an extension. He was going to be in Celtics on the bench for a long, long time.
Of course. And
he just moved on up. I guess he needed to be recharged by having a harder job. So I don't really get that. Maybe reinvigorated, re-inspired. But there's a lot weighing down on coaches, especially the last 2 seasons with the pandemic and the bubble and the short off season and coming back and having really an underperforming team, as we've talked about over and over again. So maybe going into the front office there and having a chance to bring players in who don't suck, at least on the second and third units there, might be good for them. I don't know.
Some non-Semi Ojeleyes is what you're saying is what we need.
Anyone but Semi Ojeleye. Semi Ojeleye should be hosting a podcast on the Boston Celtics rather than playing for the Boston Celtics. He sucks, and so does the rest of the bench.
Now, folks, if you think that Steve Scheele hates Semi Ojeleye, well, you're not wrong. But that hatred may pale in comparison to the feelings and emotions that Darwin Zook has for the now former head coach of our mean green Boston Celtics. Darwin, am I correct?
Yeah. Okay. Scheele, you're being way too forgiving on this whole situation. The whole reason Ojeleye is even there is Danny Ainge drafted him. This was an epic failure in the last several years by Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens, and that's why they're gone. This isn't Ainge with a health issue. Now, nothing's black and white. Did Ainge have health problems? Sure. But to me, this is an issue of a failure and a semi-firing of both Ainge and Stevens. The reason you can't just fire Stevens is the point you just made, Scheele, is that he was just given a contract extension. So basically, by bumping him up, you still retain his rights. You don't want to fire him and then pay the guy 5 more years or whatever it is on that extension. To me, when you look at it, Ainge has made so many mistakes in the last 5 to 6 years, culminating in getting nothing for Gordon Hayward when he could have at least had Miles Turner. Stevens was fed up, to your point, Scheele, about what the bench was, because Ainge is giving him nothing. And I agree with that point. The bench has been brutal, and that's because of Ainge. And Stevens has just had enough of it. And I think the owners had enough of it, Wick Grossbeck, and he said it's time for a massive change. And I think that's what happened. Sure, I mean, if we see Ainge get another general manager job of any kind in the next couple of years, and this point's even more obvious that he didn't retire because of health. He retired or he was sent away because of his failings over the last several years. And I think it's overdue. So I hope Stevens at least can do a better job as a GM than he did the last several years as a coach.
Oh man, I'm going to take umbrage with some of that. That's
mic drop.
Jeez, there's a lot you said that was wrong right there. And I'm trying to figure out what to address first. And let's go into the draft picks. You can't tell me this dude is a bad drafter. Yes, he's had some bad drafts. What GM hasn't? Point me to the GM who's been picking mid to late rounds of the first round and has hit it every single draft.
Absolutely, I agree. I'm not arguing with that, but I'm saying look at where this team.
Point me to the GM or person who's running a team who would have actually drafted Jason Tatum the year that they drafted him, trading back from the number 1 pick going to number 3. Point me to the GM or front office executive who would have drafted Jaylen Brown where they drafted him.
Where's it got them? What have they done?
Oh my God, they're like the winningest franchise in the Eastern Conference in the last decade.
What have they done? They haven't even made the finals They haven't made the finals once. What does that get you? I don't care about making the second round every year or making the Eastern Conference finals, getting blown out of the building by the Heat. What has it got you? Where's the proof? You say about all these picks. Yeah, Tatum was a great pick. I get it. And Brown, yeah, sure, that was good. But surrounding it, when you go back 5 years, they had Al Horford, Gordon Hayward, the young Tatum and Brown. You just traded Thomas for Irving. Now what do you have? You have a team that bowed out in the second round. In the first round in 5 games. So what has that all got you? All those hoarding of picks, drafting the right guys, getting Hayward, it all went south.
But you can't look at
Hayward got hurt. I get it.
You can't look in the revisionist history and say, "Oh, well, it didn't work out." You have to look at the reasons why.
It's what happened.
It absolutely is. It's absolutely revisionist history to say that he put together a team with Gordon Hayward, Kyrie Irving that was at the top of the league. Everyone expected them to win.
Nothing happened.
Gordon Hayward blew out his ankle in like 7 minutes into the game or 5 minutes into the game, the first game of the season.
And they had a chance to get something for him in a trade at the end. They got nothing. And they just let him walk out the door. Al Horford walked out the door. Kyrie Irving walked out the door. Now you have a bunch of people calling Boston racist and nothing to show for the team.
Dude, come on, Horford. Like you're making some good points here, but Horford. I mean, the train wreck that he was for Philly for the money they paid him. Like I can't. Come on.
The Celtics brought him in. I'm saying when you look at what the team was 5 years ago, or forget Horford. I mean, I don't see how this is even arguable. You had Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, 2 young stars. Now you're getting eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. You haven't been back to the NBA Finals in 8-9 years, and everyone talks about how good Ainge is and how good a coach Stevens was. I'm frustrated. I think it's been a disaster.
Oh my God, that's insane! Disaster?
I think it's reality. I'm a scoreboard watcher.
I
don't go by things made up.
I'll say disappointment, but not disaster. I can't go disaster. Disappointment, absolutely a disappointment. But I think
I go by the scoreboard. Facts.
I'm not arguing the facts, and I'm saying the facts disappoint me.
So if you don't win a championship every single year, you're a failure.
No, you haven't even been there in 10 years with all these great things he said he's done. How has he done all these great things?
All the GM or coach can do is to put the team in a position to win. They are consistently in a position to win every single year.
So it's on Stevens then for not executing.
Partially. I agree with that.
I think my point is you can't just blame one person, or I think it's an organizational failure. I do think after the amount of time that Ainge has been with the Celtics, it probably is good to get a new voice in there.
We can agree there.
It probably is to a point where Brad Stevens has been around long enough where players could be tuning him out. That's absolutely feasible. I still think he's a heck of a coach, but it is absolutely possible that players are tuning him out. So it's time for him to move on, even if that means moving upstairs. That's great.
Is it great though? He's never done this before. Just, I'll let go of the hammer per se. He's never been a GM or evaluated talent of any kind.
But just to go on the flip side of that,
every GM at some point, like you got to get your feet wet at some point.
With the Boston Celtics, with Jason Tatum, 2 years, 3 years left on his deal. If he leaves, you're screwed.
And to go on the flip side of that, if you keep hiring the same people to get fired over and over again, is that a great move? I don't know. I mean, it is absolutely a risk that they're taking, hiring a guy who doesn't have any experience as a front office executive. But it's a risk I'm willing to take because he's a smart dude who knows the team better than anyone.
And yeah, the coach will be the key move he makes right now. I mean, that's the first thing he has to do, and that I'm very curious about to see what direction he goes with, because we've heard about a monumental shift and seismic shift and hiring a woman coach potentially for the first time. I'm not opposed to that. I will say, and this shouldn't sound like a racial comment at all, I think that they need to hire, based on everything that's happened, a black coach. I think that's really important. I don't care whether it's a woman or a man, but I think just with reputation wise, and it shouldn't be political, but that's kind of the way it's happened in terms of when we look at sports and all the negative things that have been said about Boston. I don't think you can go and get another Brad Stevens, classic look white guy in his 40s. I think you gotta get a guy that can identify with these players more, that's played in the league, and I think it needs to be a black coach. I think that's really important.
Let me ask you guys this, though. I don't disagree. The thing I worry about, though, is if that happens, people are going to criticize it because they're going to say, oh, how transparent. You got Boston, the most racially charged city in America. At least that's the perception. Of course you're going to hire a black coach. Of course you're going to, expect roses and bouquets thrown at your feet for this, but the reality is, it's a PR stunt. It's not, this isn't really who they wanted. They're just trying to change the narrative. And again, I'm not saying that is legitimately what the case would be. I'm saying that's the perception of it. And I think that could cause a whole new can of worms, as opposed to what we've currently got with the reputation of the city. So that is one thing that concerns me if they go that route.
That's one of those things. I think you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Really, if you hire a black coach, you're going to hear those things. If you hire a white coach, you're going to hear, why didn't you hire a black coach? If you're going to listen to all those people who are going to criticize over that, listen to the internet trolls, then you're already losing. Hire the best person that's out for the job, and you're fine. And to Zook's point, I absolutely agree. I think they do need a black voice, because if you look at the dynamics of the team, that's someone who speaks their language is not necessarily a 44-year-old white guy, like Darwin said. It's someone. Sometimes it takes someone who looks like you, talks like you, and knows what you're going through. And in this day and age, and in the racial turmoil that's going on in this country, that's a lot of, you need to speak to someone who you can associate with and identify with, and that is, in this instance, a black voice, maybe.
Yeah, and the question is who. So I think for me, I'm just going to throw a name out that I think would be so perfect, just as a former player that kind of that can relate to these guys on a variety of levels, including getting Jason Tatum to understand, which Tatum's done a better job of, what it takes to win. It doesn't have to be a score, and that's Chauncey Billups. I think
former Celtic great Chauncey Billups.
Rick Pitino showed the door.
Hair.
Love Chauncey Billups. He was the best player, really, on two Pistons championships teams that were not superstar laden at all. I mean, they had Chauncey Billups and Rip Hamilton. I mean,
don't forget Hall of Famer
Ben Wallace.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and they had good players. But I'm saying, in terms of their whole team dynamic, in some ways it was a lot like the bad boy Pistons in the late 80s. That was like the Detroit kind of way. Isaiah Thomas is an all-time great, but generally the way those teams were constructed are kind of similar. And I think Billups would really get through to guys like Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown, to me, seems like a guy that would have been on that like Pistons team with Billups and Hamilton. He like fits that mold of tough, defensive minded. And I think Billups can really get through to these guys, that it's not about how many points you score. We got to find a way to turn the corner, make people around the stars better, and find a way to win in the playoffs, which the Celtics have had a hard time doing, winning in the playoffs.
One thing you said, the first thing you said is that you're interested to see what they do with the coaching search, and that's going to tell you a lot of what they're going to do. I cannot wait to see what he does with this roster, what Brad Stevens does with this roster. It's going to tell you ample volumes of what exactly he thinks about this roster right here. If all of a sudden all these players start exiting, who knows if he's absolutely able to do it. But the easiest person they can get rid of, and Zook, take a minute because it's going to hurt.
Okay.
Your boy Marcus Smart could be seeing the door real quick here.
I'd start with the other backcourt mate first.
Yeah, it's that you can't trade that dude.
It's a UConn guy. You can't even speak after.
I'm like stuttering. I can't even say that. Dude's making too much money. Who are you going to trade him for?
Say his name.
I can't. I don't
say his name.
I don't want to say it.
I'll say it. Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker needs to be shown the door. And I would love this Dallas swap. I think Porzingis needs a resurrection of his career in a different place. Now, I know in terms of contract swaps, everyone calls it 2 bad contracts. Walker has 1 year left, so Dallas would benefit getting rid of his contract sooner. Porzingis has, I believe, 3 years of big money left on his deal. But I think Porzingis is a reclamation project that could still fit the Brad Stevens mold of a spot-up big man shooter. And I don't know why his defense has gone so downhill. Could be injuries, but I would love that Porzingis Kemba Walker swap. I'd start right there. I hope that happens.
How about a Kemba Time Lord front court? That's kind of cool.
What you mean Porzingis?
Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong K. Kristaps, not Kemba. I'm sorry.
I was so confused there.
I got a bunch of weird looks. I'm like, what did I say? Sorry. KP Time Lord front court, not Kemba. Yeah.
I like it. I like it, Matt.
It depends on what you're getting, though. If you're getting this year's Kristaps Porzingis, who can't move, who's in a lot of ways like Kemba, like you said, then what are you really getting? This guy can't stay healthy for more than 10 games at a time, and when he does, he's out there sulking and crying because Luka Doncic is a better basketball player than him. Sorry, but you know who else is better than you? Jason Tatum. Also Jaylen Brown.
But Scheele, honestly, just asking you right now, do you think Porzingis is you only a guy like Billups or different people could get through to him, like a former player?
I don't know.
Really work with him.
I don't know if it's a get through type of situation. If the dude can't stay healthy, it doesn't matter. You could get through all you want, but if dude's limping up the court, you're on your own.
You wouldn't do Kemba for Kristaps, honestly.
I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. I'm just saying you're kind of trading one problem for another. Is that really the answer? I don't know. I would be willing to at least explore it. I don't know who you're getting to take over for point guard, because obviously, like I said, Marcus Smart is moving on out as well.
But that's a good point about point guards too. I mean, there's so few true point guards left anymore. I mean, we see with Mike Conley out with Utah, Donovan Mitchell's bringing up the ball. I mean, Marcus Smart has played some point. I mean, there's very few Rondo's true point guards left. He's not even getting minutes now with the Clippers. So it's like, I'm not sure you have to go and get yourself a quote unquote point guard. You could just put in your next best guard and then just work from there, because the age of true point guards, I mean, Trae Young's been great. I guess he's a true point guard, but there's not many left like that have 15 assists in a game.
And who would have saw Trae Young turning into what he's turned into in this playoffs either? He did not look like this last year or even earlier, a couple months ago.
Yeah.
I'm stunned by that.
Yeah, the way he stomped on the Knicks. Love you, Trae. Thanks, buddy. Want to wrap up the Celtics discussion with a very quick yes or no answer to this. NBA earlier tonight released the all NBA teams for second, third. No Jason Tatum. Surprised? Yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely surprised. Disappointed, angry, annoyed. Yeah, you can't tell me that Jason Tatum doesn't belong on any of those teams. He probably should have been on second team.
I was surprised.
Yeah. He should be there. I'm a little hesitant just because of how the team finished losing.
Zook's looking for any excuse possible to say no, he doesn't belong there, but he can't.
I will say, yeah, you're right on that, Scheele. I love when we argue, but I got to agree on this one. I think Tatum should have been there, and I think he actually showed me something in that Nets series, especially in Game 3, and even in the losses. Like, my deal with Tatum is, does he have the desire? Does he want to be really good, or does he just want to get endorsements and score 30 in game and be like Tracy McGrady and just be a really, really good player, maybe even great, but never really wins anything? But I saw a little edge in that Nets series that showed me like he really wants to be at that high echelon level, and he wants to take his team to that level, which is more important to me than individually what you do. So Tatum showed me something, even losing in 5 games, and I'm excited to see what the future will bring for him. I hope he just doesn't walk out the door in a couple of years from Boston, though.
Yeah, I don't see that happening, but I agree that like next year is going to tell a big part of the story about who Jason Tatum is and who Jason Tatum is going to be. Let's talk a little bit of Bruins in the time we got left. And Scheele, for your benefit, I want to make this a larger discussion about when teams have to know when the window is closing. How do you know how far open that window is or isn't? When do you move on? When do you trade off? Of course, the Bruins bounced in 6 games in the second round by the Islanders, and as much as it hurt, I had to come to the realization and the acceptance that the Isles were a tougher, deeper, better coach team, and the better team did win that series. The Bruins on paper have more talent. They've got more marquee talent, more marquee names. That's not what wins in the playoffs. It'll score you a lot of pretty goals, get you a lot of pretty stats in the regular season, but come the playoffs, a totally different ball of wax. The Isles are so tailored to that style of play in the playoffs, which is why they have an excellent shot at making their first Stanley Cup final in forever if they get past Tampa Bay. But I think the better team won that series. And again, larger discussion, the Bruins, they've still got their core intact. You know, Marchand, Bergeron, they're creeping
Is
up
that
on
a good
their,
thing?
well, where those guys are concerned, yes, because that is the best line in hockey. I don't care what anyone says. Pasternak, Marchand, Bergeron, that is the best line of hockey. The problem is the other three lines, you're getting nothing. And you can get away with that in the regular season where one line is so dominant and you have just enough goaltending and defense to get by. That's not going to cut it in the playoffs. They ran into a banged up Washington team in round one. They got past them pretty easily in 5 games. A totally different story in the second round. Isles bounced them in 6 games. Darwin, do you think that the window is closed? And if not, how fast is it closing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is closing. And I think you make a great point about the first line and how good it is. And that's really the main guys involved with that window closing. But there's another guy that I think is holding the team back. And I know Scheele's going to disagree with me again on this. But watching the playoffs, especially at the end, is the goalie. Tuukka Rask was awful in those last couple games. He's having labrum surgery on his hip. And I get it. You're hurt. But now this has been going on a long time with Tuukka Rask. He had a gastral issue in like another big playoff game. He lost to the Blues in that game 7. He was putrid in that game. In big moments, Tuukka Rask does not come through. The one cup the Bruins have won in the last decade was with Tim Thomas in net.
Right.
So I just don't think Tuukka Rask is the guy anymore. And I'm really disappointed that Bruce Cassidy didn't go with Swayman, the kid, in game 6 when Rask clearly was hurting. He didn't play well in game 5.
I understand not going to Swayman because it was a road game. I think that is way too much to ask of a rookie. An elimination game on the road, I think that is, you're putting him in a position to fail. So I know Tuukka was hurt.
Is Swayman that fragile that it would hurt him in the future?
I'm not saying he's fragile, but just the environment. I mean, you're making your first start in that scenario. Man, that's tough.
It couldn't have gone worse.
Well, in retrospect,
I know.
yes,
in retrospect, I get it. But I just was surprised because Cassidy seems to be, he's always talking in front of the media. He's very open about his players. And I was surprised he just didn't say, I feel like, let's put it this way. I think organizationally, there was pressure from Neely and Sweeney to play Rask in that game. I think if Butch Cassidy, if you put him up to a lie detector and it was just him, no organizational decision, I don't think Rask would have been in that game 6. I think he thought that Swayman gave him the best chance to win that game.
You know, I'm not going to jump in here and act like I'm a huge Bruins fan or hockey fan either. The one thing I will say that I am surprised by, Darwin, is that you're not giving Rask a little bit of a break here, that he did play through a torn hip labrum. That seems to be like your kind of person right there. Is you go for the tough guys who leave it all out on either the field, the court, the ice, whatever. That seems to be what Tuukka did here. I'm not throwing stones here. I'm just surprised that you're not saying a little bit like, oh, I'm impressed by that.
It's a good point. I just think that that's where you need a coach to come in. For instance, there's a Nets-Bucks game going on right now. James Harden was, I think, 0 for 6 at halftime. Now, if you're Steve Nash, if he's that ineffective in that first half, you as the coach have to say, I know you're a star. Sit down. You're not helping us. You're hurting the team. That's up to the coach. So you're right. Maybe I shouldn't be blaming Rask for that. Rask wanted to play. He did play. But I think the coach sometimes has to say what gives us the best chance to win this game. I know it was a pressure moment, but watching Rask in game 5, he didn't look good. So I wasn't.
He was bad. He was bad in the last 2 games. I agree.
There seems to be a familiar argument that you and I have on just about every sports team that we look at. And it's always you're saying they should have done this. And my argument is always, well, yeah, if they did this, who else are they replacing that person with? And again, to Waymire's point here, if you're replacing him with a rookie who doesn't, even know how to wipe his nose in terms of hockey.
He was good in the regular season. Swayman was not just totally, he wasn't out of nowhere.
He was very good, but I just think that environment and that situation, to ask that of a rookie would have been, asking for trouble. And rocking a hard place here for Bruce Cassidy. It really was. And I think another point about Tuukka, you have to go back a year ago and what happened with him. When he left the bubble to tend to a family emergency, which at the time Nobody knew what was going on. All anybody knew was that, oh, geez, you got the Stanley Cup contending team, you're the starting goaltender, and you leave. And he got the hate he got for that, and still gets for that, even after it came out that his daughter was hospitalized, and he took the first flight home as any good father would or should. And I hold no ill will towards him for that, because I think, honestly, for being honest here, even if he had stayed, I think Tampa beats him anyway. They went on to win the cup after all. But again, getting back to Tuukka, I think that he was trying, maybe over trying to overcompensating for what happened last year to prove to the fan base, hey, I'm here for this ride. I'm on one good hip. I don't care. I'm going to be in there for my team. I'm not going to abandon them, quote unquote. It's just not what he did, but that's how it was perceived. I'm not going to abandon this team again. I think that played a large role into both his decision and Bruce Cassidy's decision. It backfired, but in retrospect, I can't say it was the wrong move. I really can't.
Okay, I hear both your points, but Matt, let me just ask you this point blank. Don't
Sure.
you feel, as a Bruins fan inwardly right now, your gut reaction, don't you think it's time? Like, I'm not saying some of these things are his fault at all and his family, but like, it just feels there's like some baggage there. Like, it just feels like it's time to move on from Tuukka Rask. So going back to the original question about,
is that like a Gordon Hayward type baggage type situation? Do you think? Not,
Yeah.
obviously not the same scenario,
Yeah.
but
I think
that's a point where you just can't go back.
Yeah, I think that is fair. The difference
Yeah.
is Rask is like a mainstay of the Bruins for a longer period of time. And people think about Bruins, they think, they think Bergeron, they think Marchand, they think Pasternak even now, and they think like Tuukka Rask, like that's the guy. And I just think it feels like now, it's like at some point you have to cut bait with the guy. It just feels like now.
I think that, like I was saying before, rightfully or wrongfully, he has absorbed a lot of criticism, a lot of hate from the Bruins fan base over the years. And Darwin, you brought up, losing Game 7, the Cup final in 2019. That was his chance.
It was
to solidify his legacy and to finally shut everybody up and say, hey, his name is on the cup from 2011, but as a backup. That was his opportunity. And I'm not pinning the entire loss on him by any means. But again,
no one showed up for that game, which is remarkable.
No one did. Brad Marchand, he had that horrific gaffe at the end.
Imagine
of the
if Marchand
2 goals.
Imagine Marchand in this playoffs, best player on the team.
No question.
Imagine that Marchand in that Blues Game 7.
Yeah.
They probably are hoisting a cup. Rask has a different commentary. Everything changes.
Yeah. Hey guys, I gotta break in, right? So we just won a prestigious award. This is the longest hockey talk that has ever been on any podcast ever. So I think we deserve some kind of kudos right now. And congratulations to us. Slap our backs, and there you go.
Yeah,
absolutely. Hey, playoff hockey is awesome. I can't say I pay attention to the regular season all that much, but in the playoffs, I watch almost everything. I love hockey playoffs.
I mean, just the crowds and look, I mean, I hated losing to the Islanders, and I got a lot of gruff, whatever you want to call it, at work from my Islanders coworkers. And hey, they deserved it. They won fair and square. You beat us, good. Move on and
shove them in a locker.
Believe me, I tried. I'm not big or strong enough. That's where I need you, Darwin.
I'll help you do that.
Thank you. You know where I'm working for now. But yeah, but looking at the crowds and the way, and here's another thing about Bruce Cassidy. I think he made a critical tactical error when he criticized the refs, the whole New York Saints thing after losing Game 5. Dude, that's fine if you're heading into a home game. Don't feed the visiting team's fans. But like that to me was
tactical
such a
error
dumb thing to do. Like, dude, you've been in this a while. Like, you can't make a move like that. If you say that before Game 6, which is at home, which or Game 7, which would have been at home, that's one thing. But to fire up the Islanders fans with that comment and blow up Twitter was
a great point.
Dumb. That was stupid. So that falls on him. Cutting bait with Tuukka, it may happen because he's talked openly about retiring and just wanting to be a family man, and he's in his mid-30s, which is not ancient by any means now, and the Red Sox are now winning. Thank you, Alex Verdugo. But yeah, I like the point you guys made, the comparison between the Hayward baggage and the Rask baggage, where it's not necessarily either one of their faults directly. It's just they're victims of circumstance, and when those things accumulate, you just need a fresh look, a new start. And for that reason, it's not a personal indictment on either one of these guys, but that's when it's time to cut bait and move on. So that might be the case with Tuukka Rask.
Really is true. Two incredible changing times with the Celtics and Bruins right now, because the Bruins are going to undergo some type of shift. I feel like going to next year, Celtics already have in a dramatic way. So, I mean, it's a huge transitional time, not to mention the Patriots, which we might not even get to today, but a huge transitional time for those three teams, especially the Celtics and Bruins, in terms of what's going to happen going into next year.
Yeah. Hey, one of the similarity that I was picking up on as you guys were talking about was just the similarities between the Celtics and Bruins in terms of, are they top heavy, right? The Celtics, I think, are pretty top heavy in terms of their starting line.
Yeah.
I know Matt, you said that the Bruins starting lineup is the starting lineup, whatever.
First line.
Perfection line.
First line. Thank you. Is the best in the NHL right now. I can't say that about the Celtics. There's no chance you could say that about the Celtics, especially when the Nets are in existence and all healthy at least.
Right.
But there's no depth. There's no depth either in the Celtics or the Bruins, maybe. And maybe that's an issue too that needs to be addressed before we go anywhere else.
Yeah, I agree. And especially, with the way that playoffs develop now in every sport, it's about health and depth. It's not about star power necessarily. And Darwin, like you were saying before, the Nets are taking it on the chin tonight at home.
Tightening up.
What's that?
Tightening up now. 6-point game, but hopefully they will take it on the chin in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Screw the Nets. Is there a team that we hate any more than the Nets?
No, they are so hateable, Sheely. Let's agree on that.
Yeah.
High five. Yes,
yeah, buddy.
Absolutely.
Well, I dislike them. But guys,
hate.
Sports hate.
Sports hate. I agree. But like, you hate the Nets more than the Yankees, really?
In basketball, only basketball.
Oh, all right. I thought you meant like just any team, any sport.
Only in basketball.
Okay, all right.
And the Lakers are a close second, but they're already out of the playoffs. So I'm not really that concerned with the purple and gold right now.
Yeah. And by the way, how I guess fitting, for lack of a better word, was it that you look at the 4 finalists in the NBA last year? 3 of them, because of the short offseason, got banged up, never found their footing, and had first-round playoff exits. Celtics, obviously, Lakers, and Heat. I don't think that's an accident.
No, absolutely not. I'm excited to see what happens now. I'm disappointed in the last several games in the playoffs. It feels like it's all blowouts. Like Phoenix blew out the Nuggets. Even last night, the Jazz, the Clippers blew. The games themselves haven't been that entertaining, but I am excited to see, finally, like a new NBA champion. There's no Warriors. There's no Lakers. LeBron's done. So I'm curious to see which star rises, what happens now. So I think, that's going to be fun. Joel Embiid's playing through injury, 0 for 12 in the second half yesterday. I mean, this stuff's going to happen here in these NBA playoffs, and I'm curious to see who's standing in the end.
Guys, the Phoenix Suns may be the next NBA champion. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it really isn't. It could happen.
Chris Paul will find a way to miss 2 key free throws in the Western Conference Finals. Mark my words. As good as he's played, I've seen him do this with the Clippers. He's been there. Not that we're on a huge tangent away from, but Chris Paul will find a way to mess this up. Mark that.
That's actually my pick. Not necessarily with the head, but certainly with the heart. As I'm looking for the Suns to succeed and actually win this whole damn thing.
Man. Guys, we got a couple minutes left, and this is a game that I probably enjoy this a little more than you guys, but I'm going to just drop it on you now because I think it's a good way to close the show. Let's play Name That Former Red Sox. I'm going to give you some stats of a former Red Sox from this year. I don't know if these stats are exact. I saw them a day or 2 ago, and it blew my mind.
Hang on, let me get Google open.
What's that?
Let me get my Google page open.
You won't need Google for this. I highly doubt. So the numbers I saw, and again, I could be a little bit off on this, in 2021, 28 innings pitched, 45 Ks.
This year? This year.
28 innings, 45 Ks, 0.66 ERA. Name that former Red Sox.
Is he a former closer?
Might be.
Craig Kimbrell.
Boom.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
Wow. Tim hit it first, our producer. He wrote it in before Sheely could even answer. Tim is the winner. Tim McMaster, the winner on that.
Tim, who is also a soon-to-be father. Congratulations, Tim. Awesome news.
You should call him Craig.
Woo!
There we go.
Not Brad.
Is Kimbrell, is he been known to use rosin bags and sticky stuff? And
here's the thing. Every single pitcher in baseball uses sticky stuff. They're
It's
all
just a
into
matter
that
of how
sticky
much.
icky.
No
Everyone.
matter how much.
Every single
Sheila, you're not usually one to use blanket statements
no
like that.
Listen, baseball is full of cheaters. They have been full of cheaters for the entire history of the sport. Either you're cheating as a hitter, you're cheating as a pitcher, and if you're not cheating, you're not trying, right?
Yeah, but yet you turn your blind eye because you're not a cheater, Sheila, and you're like a good dude who does the right thing, and yet you love this sport and you love where it's going. Yet now you're calling everyone a cheater. I don't understand. This doesn't sound like you to be accepting of this.
When the entire sport cheats, it's not like you can really pick apart. No, I wish that the entire sport didn't cheat, but you can't argue the facts. That's exactly what they've done. If it's steroids, if it's performance enhancing drugs of any other
Stealing
sort,
signs.
stealing signs. Yeah. If it's what's up, Alex Cora?
That's right, baby. Manager of the year.
And now it's sticky stuff, right? Because they've been using sticky stuff it's been a topic of conversation for years. It's been accepted. Everyone said, fine, whatever. We want the pitchers to have more control, so they're not loose cannons. They're not hitting people left and right and beaning people in the head. Yeah, you know what? Now they're just picking apart, and this is the time where everyone's getting their panties in a bunch and getting upset about it. But it's whatever.
And can I just ask you guys one thing? You guys are more baseball than me, and I'm honestly really curious your response. There's all conspiracy theories out there, right? Of like Major League Baseball each year can sometimes manipulate the ball, different aspects about it to create more of a hitting season, create more of a pitching season, whatever. My question is, if the ball is just the ball and the players are just the players, no steroids, no enhancements, no nothing to the ball, is the concern that there would be too many home runs and too much hitting, or is the concern there would be too many no-hitters, too much pitching, and not enough hitting? Like, what is the issue with keeping it level?
The concern is there be too much of something, because every time it shifts one way, they overcorrect in the other direction.
What is the middle? Like, if you're doing a science experiment, what is the?
It's a good question. I don't know.
I mean, what's the word?
We've never seen
the middle ground.
We've never seen it clean. The control, we've never seen it clean as
well. Going back to the 70s and the 60s. I mean,
no, absolutely not. These people are these people are taking absolutely everything.
Amphetamines.
Yeah, the amphetamines have been going on for years.
Yeah.
Years and years and years. This is not something that's new. That I'm telling you,
as much as people romanticize about yesteryear and the good old days of baseball, those only exist in fairy tale narratives, because taking shortcuts and cheating and finding ways, underhanded, dirty ways to win, that's, Sheila, you said it. That's been the definition of the sport since its inception.
So what is so than any other sport?
What is the way to fix it, though? What is the way to fix it?
Who knows? I mean, you fix one thing and something else pops up, and they say, "Oh God, this is the moment that we're going to focus on this." And to me, this is a direct result of them saying, "Okay, we have to try to figure out something to get away from the three true outcomes, right? That the home runs, strikeouts, and walks."
Yep.
They're saying if we take off the sticky substances, maybe the spin rates won't be crazy, and we won't have to worry about that, and there'll be more offense, more contact. Because right now it's either home runs or strikeouts, right? Everyone's going for broke on every single swing.
Launch angle.
Maybe if the spin rate and you're not getting crazy breaking balls and crazy fast four-seam fastballs, then maybe there'll be more contact in the sport. So I think this is a direct result of that. Is it the right answer? Yeah, probably. I mean, anytime that there's people cheating, you should probably do anything you can to try to eliminate that. So, I don't see any problem with going after it. It is going to be very, very interesting to see what the effect is on this. And what is the effect on the Red Sox pitching staff that is already pretty terrible? You know what? They need all the help they can get. Maybe they should just use just straight up pine tar, just cover the ball, because that's the only chance they have at being anywhere near good this year.
Yeah, I agree. And what was I going to say? Brain fart. Darwin, help me out. I can't remember.
Alex, but what is Alex Cora's role in this too? Because he has to be really careful in terms of what he says or what he does at this point, because he's kind of has two strikes on him, literally right now in terms for Major League Baseball, and he's overseeing a staff that was doing quite well this year until recently.
So the crackdown, the timing of that makes it scratch your head. I was going to say that, you know what, the focus now is on the baseballs and the sticky stuff and the this and the that. And as all this is going on, I promise you, there's another team right now developing a more sophisticated way to steal signs than the Astros did. That's going to fly under the radar. And in 5 years, it's going to be Astros 2.0. That's just the way it works. It's
You
just the way
guys'
it works.
favorite sport is a mess, right?
It
How
is.
can I just say that?
Can't argue that.
It is, and it always has been, and it always will be.
Yep.
You're okay with that? I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this, of trying to like, what was, okay, put it this way. What was your favorite time to watch baseball? So did it have any correspondence to something being cleaner, or so
No,
what
because-
I
What do
just
you want
equated
it
to
to
me,
be?
just me being a kid and being oblivious and naive to all this stuff, and just turning on the TV and watching WSBK TV 38 out of Boston and enjoying.
I
the
love
hell out
that
of my Red
too.
Sox. That's it. That was when I enjoyed baseball the most. Is when I was again oblivious and naive to all the shenanigans going on, and I just wanted to watch Roger Clemens strike guys out when Wade Boggs get 3 hits a game. That's when I was the happiest.
The
you know?
two cleanest guys in all of sports. Roger Clemens.
Absolutely. Two beacons of virtue, Clemens and Boggs. But
No,
again, the naivety of being a kid, that's where it all paid off, because I didn't realize what scumbags they were.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss, right?
Ignorance is bliss.
That's all you need to know. You
But
fall
okay,
in love
but-
with sport.
But I'm one last try. I'm going to try at this. If you're commissioner now, what do you do to correct it and try and move in a positive direction where there's some transparency and understanding of where the sport is going, and at least not as much cheating? Where do you go from here?
See, the problem is they're screwed. They can't get anything past the Players Association. The Players Association despises the owners, despises the commissioner, and vice versa. These two are oil and water. They're never actually going to get together and fix anything because they hate each other too much. So anything
there's
that
too
they
much money at
possibly
stake.
could do, it's very political. It's just
Yeah.
like our nation's politics right now.
That's right.
Everyone hates each other, so they can't agree. And if it's something that benefits one side, then the other side digs in their heels and won't go for it. So I don't know how they get past that. The only thing they can do is try to do exactly what they're doing now. Right now, they're doing this toothless 10-game suspension with pay.
With pay.
Yeah,
Give me a
which
break.
if you manipulate it, you lose one start if you're a starting
Right.
pitcher.
Right.
What does that
up
really
that
do?
to 20 or 30 games? If you're going to have to do pay because of you can't get it past the Players Association, you need to up that suspension, double that, in order to discourage
Yeah.
players.
There's no compromise, only conflict. And boys, my SOBs, I think that's a good place to end it. On this very hot, sweltering night in my Nissan Sentra. Hope you guys are staying cooler in your air-conditioned locales. For Steve Scheele, for Darwin Zook, for executive producer and father-to-be Tim McMaster, I'm Matt Waymire. Signing off for this Sons of Bellhorn. Join us next time. More riveting discussion on more riveting topics about our beloved Boston sports team. So long, everybody.